Y'all, this episode, oh my gosh. Okay, so number one, right out of the gate, let's get the numbers out of the way. Sound design, 10 out of 10. Story, 10 out of 10. Okay, so I'm going to be a little critical of the animation just because this is an episode that was held off. This was an episode that was held back so they could produce the animation, do everything they needed to do. And I get it. I see why this episode was held back. There was probably a lot of post-production work that absolutely just needed to, like, pop and sizzle. And let me tell you guys, when this episode was on, the fire effects around Ryu, literally everything. Like, everything about this episode, when it was on, it was absolutely stellar. Beautiful. I really don't want to, like, compare the studio to other studios, but this is probably some of the best stuff we've seen out of JC Staff, maybe since, last season. And I'd even argue maybe some of the best top 5 stuff we have seen out of JC Staff, the entire franchise, okay? So good stuff, well worth the wait. However, I'm going to be honest with you guys, there were a few moments that I was not a big fan of. When the 2 deities came out from my pillar, they didn't have faces. The faces were not drawn on. And I'm sorry, you've now had 2 months to get that. I get they're smaller pictures, whatever. But at this day and age, 4K monitors and all that are pretty easy to come by. We should be animating at a higher standard. There were just a small number of moments like that really irked me. And I do want to take away a point. However, as everything was as high as it was, and as good as it was, and as amazing as it was, I want to give a point back. But I can't give this episode a 10. So I'm going to give it a 9.75. Only because of the highs were so unbelievably high. Oh my goodness. So, full disclosure, this is a little ahead of where I am in the light novels. I'm all the way back in book 16, so everything that I've read was we've kind of covered a while ago. Unfortunately, just life, guys. Unfortunately, it happens. I'm rereading the series currently. I'm going to go start to finish since there's no way I'm going to be able to catch up with these episodes in time. And we'll literally cover the whole series over again and talk about it light novel v anime, because a lot of you guys have said you wanted that, and because I picked up the light novels in volume 8. Now, that said, this episode was mind-blowing. Absolutely amazing. As a fan of Dan Mimo, honestly, I talked about it, the thing that got me into the franchise in the very first place, the old gacha game that we had up to about a year and a half ago. That game, what? Yeah, it's been about 2 years. It's been a minute. It's been about a year. It's been a minute. But good grief, this is so big, guys. This was such a huge moment. Now, having Estrella on screen, amazing. I have long said I want like a movie or like a OVA set or something like that would go over the Estrella record story. I think that would be phenomenal. And on top of it, to see Njord here, who is in the light novels and all that, but to see their characters fleshed out exactly like we saw in that game is just awesome. Frankly, just absolutely awesome, and just a testament to how much that game really brought to the lore of this franchise. I thought Ryu's sword was in that game. Somebody did say they didn't think so in the comments. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Maybe it was another weapon. It's hard to tell. Either way, so excited. So obviously, this was a big Ryu episode. Now, for those of you that did not pick up the Pop-Up Parade figure when it was out, not for lack of trying, I think that figure is easily doubled after this episode, which is sad. But there is a scale figure coming out. I personally just pre-ordered it literally this morning after watching this. So that's just a little aside there. Let's just go back to the beginning of the episode because there's so much going on here. And I've even watched episode 13. I'm going to go watch episode 13 after this and give you my review of that after this. But holy crap, this was just insane. So, number one, right out of the gate, we were in the middle of the battle, right? And everything seemed to be just going to pot. Things were not going well. Things were not transpiring the way that we would kind of hope them to. And we kind of got a little bit of that, Bell versus Otaro whole thing that was going on. And obviously Otaro's just getting his clock, or Otaro. No. Bell is absolutely getting his clock clean. But Bell's holding on like a champ. Like, dude is absolutely handling himself. And, for better or worse, there's only so much that they can do. But slowly over this episode, we do begin to see that our deities get overwhelmed. Also, Alan, what the hell, man? So, when Alan found those two deities behind the pillar that I mentioned that didn't have faces when they came out, they're only supposed to take their flowers, but Alan seemed to knock them out, and I thought we said at the beginning of this, no harm would come to the deities. So, that be what it be. Also, the simple fact that Hephaestus ran into Alan doesn't bode well for her either. But I think Hephaestus can hold her own. Also, I love the fight between Take and like all the grunts. Like really low level adventurers. But if you go back and you kind of like watch the beginning of the series and all that, what these low level adventurers are capable of is actually pretty substantial. Like it is a substantial sum. So by comparison, anybody that's imbued with Falna is like way stronger than your average person. And the fact that a deity with really no powers to speak of, because they've basically sealed all their powers when they came down, is able to hold his own against that many adventurers is pretty awesome. Like that is absolutely fantastic. So there's just some great moments at the beginning of this episode. But let's be real here. The real moment that we're all here for is that big showdown between Hegni and Ryu. And when Cassandra and Daphne were facing off against Hegni, and Cassandra was literally begging, Daphne was literally begging Cassandra to like heal her, and she talks about her like special skill. Basically, her skin more or less turns to wood-ish. And she's just basically literally getting cut down and, doing everything she can. And Cassandra's even mentioning, like, Hegni's cursed blade is making her healing factor, her ability to heal, a little bit reduced. So, it's quite a bit reduced, actually. So, Daphne's not really able to put up the fight that she would love to put up. And you find out much later on. I'm just going... By the way, guys, if you haven't watched the episode, go watch the episode. I'm gushing right now because I literally am off the back of that episode. I'm trying to get this over with, so I can go watch episode 13. Then we'll do the review of that because this was so big. But yeah, you find out much later that basically Daphne's whole goal was just basically be a meat shield. Like, basically take as much damage as she can, and then wear down his blade, so to speak. Because as you use the cursed blade, the blade becomes less effective. And also it zaps some of the stamina from the user. So little by little, she's just basically there to wear down Hegni. That's like her only goal. And obviously Cassandra's very sweet. And she has the right intentions. But, and the answer was correct. Like, Daphne was probably not going to make it out of that fight if she went back in. So I think Cassandra made the right call there, personally. But obviously Ryu shows up and... Oh, that moment was so crazy, y'all. It was insane. You see Ryu, kind of, descend from the sky, this very angelic, figure, so to speak. And when she unleashes Elise's, skill, her skill, it's crazy to even see, Hermes is, it's an ability that kind of, defies logic, defies explanation. The gods don't even necessarily understand how this could be happening, per se, is kind of how he goes about it. But as she faces off against Hegni, you find out very quickly that she has jumped 2 whole levels. And apparently this has never been done. This has never been a thing. But if you go back and you watch Season 4 and you watch everything leading up to that, and you know how much Ryu has been doing behind the scenes, it makes a ton of sense. Like, honestly, they show a few clips from Season 4, and they really kind of like work this up. And you basically find out that more or less... Ryu, and once again, I haven't read the light novels, so I'm reading between the lines here of the anime. The anime is often very vague about this, but it seems like Ryu went out, found Estrella, who, you know, if you don't know the whole background there, because there's a lot of background there that a lot of people probably don't know. Basically, Estrella was more or less like told by Ryu, you have to leave town. You have to go. This evilist organization is going to take everything out. You are a target. You have to leave for your own safety. And that's basically what happens. Like, most of the Familia just gets killed off. Unalived. Whatever. We're far enough into the review. It doesn't matter. So, basically, Ryu's more or less the only one left. And everyone kind of believes Ryu to be dead. Like, nobody thinks she's actually alive. They even mentioned it here. Not that her costume was great, but apparently slightly coloring your hair, cutting it, you know, or wearing it a little bit differently, and mostly covering up in a maid's outfit is the glasses on Clark Kent, you know, or glasses on Superman. So, you know, like, it's not a great costume, but it works. Also, I think part of it, too, is nobody really wants to mess with Mamma Mia, but that's its own thing. So, little by little, you more or less find out that she's borrowing the power from Elise. She got this big power up from Estrella, and Estrella even shows up with Njord, who's never really been mentioned in the anime, I don't think, at all. I think Estrella got mentioned once or twice in the prior season or two. And Demeter's actually back, which, if you don't know, that's a huge thing. That's a whole thing. I'm not even going to go into that. That's, if you played Dan Mimo, and let alone if you read the light novels, you know what all's going on there. But this is a big moment. Like, and I kind of feel like if you're anime only, you don't fully grasp what all's going on there. All I can say is that's a big deep dive. And if you those of you that like are anime only, we can definitely deep dive into that. There's a lot to talk about there that can't just be summed up in this video. You know, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments if that's the case, because we can definitely explain it and go into that. But the long and the short of it is, this is the first time we've seen Demeter in a long time in the franchise. This is the first time we've ever seen Njord, and this is the, basically, that's the kind of like buff, like topless dude that was with Estrella. And this is the first time we've seen Estrella in the anime, short of like maybe flashbacks and, you know, brief clips and things like that. And we do find out that Estrella has joined the they keep calling him the Allied, but the Allied team, more or less. Like, she's wearing the flower and over everything like that. So yeah, this is a huge moment, because honestly, realistically thinking about it, if Estrella was not allied with Hestia, then Ryu would never have been able to really join the fight. So it kind of makes a lot of sense. Also, the other thing you got to consider here, it means a lot more than I think a lot of people are kind of taking off face value, because Estrella, you notice when Estrella showed up, everyone was like, the Estrella family's back. Oh my God, this is amazing. The Estrella Familia were basically seen as like the, more or less the conscience of Arario. They were like the justice Familia. That was their whole thing. Estrella is the goddess of justice. So this is huge. The fact that she's allied with Hestia is not just like, OMFG, we have Ryu and all of Ryu's crazy powers now. No, this is a major moment for the storytelling aspect here. This is like, no, Freya is 100% in the wrong. It is what it is, and it's her flights of fancy. Funny enough, they mentioned earlier in even book 1 of the beginning of the original series that when Freya first gets infatuated with Belle, she goes, okay, well, if I kill him, I'll just follow him back to Genki, to basically heaven, and I will just trace him down. Like this is he will be mine. Is essentially Freya just gets tunnel vision on these things. But nevertheless, and it's not the first time we've seen it. Nevertheless, basically Ryu just unleashes this crazy blast and wipes most of the field out. Like people are gone. Now we do see the Elvish squad come back here towards the end, and they're not completely out, but they seem to be mostly unconscious, mostly like out of the fight for now. And now it's just Ryu and Hegni with Ryu's brand new upgraded powers, and the showdown is insane, completely mind-blowingly bonkers. It's so good. I just want to go rewatch it, but I need to get to episode 13. We'll be back to talk about episode 13 because at the end of this episode, as the elf squad was about to go out, like we'll call them the elf, the Toku Elf Sentai. They're ready to go out there and to like resurrect everybody on the field and be like, "Yep, come on, get back. Yeah, there you go." Of all things, they're wiped out from behind by Hedon, a member of their own familia. Mind blow. Like, oh my God. All right, so I'm going to go watch episode 13. We'll come back and we'll talk about this. Make sure you guys like, make sure you guys subscribe, make sure you guys stay up to date. Oh, this is insane. I'll see you guys here again in about a half hour.